Welcome to the unsettling and disturbing world of, well, the real world, but also Terror at Collinwood. I am your hostess, Penny Dreadful. I'm very excited to bring you this episode featuring my illustrious guests, Bobby Lugosi and Katherine Gonzales, and we're going to be talking all about the ghosts and revenants of Dark Shadows. I do want to let you know, however, that the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards ballot is scheduled to go up on Wednesday, February 26th, and I don't know if Terror at Collinwood's going to be on there or not, but it has been on there the last 3 years, and we've come in second 3 years in a row. So please give it a look when it goes up at rondoaward.com and check out all of the nominees, several of which I'm sure have been on this podcast, and as I suspect there will be some on there. So check out rondoaward.com. Voting is scheduled to begin on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025. And I've got some Dark Shadows related news for you. Tickets are now available for the July 2025 Lyndhurst Dark Shadows weekend, which is happening July 19th and 20th. The weekend will include meet and greet sessions on Saturday and Sunday, both morning and afternoon. The cost for the meet and greet is $40. There will also be a Cocktails at Collinwood event on Saturday evening, which is $125 and includes small bites and drinks in the mansion and on the veranda. There will be photo opportunities with original props and furnishings from the Dark Shadows set and rare access to the Tower Room. There will also be tours of the grounds that weekend led by the Dark Shad Bros, Peter and DJ. Come to Lyndhurst and meet the one and only Katherine Lee Scott, author and actress best known for playing Maggie Evans and Josette Dupre in the original series and in House of Dark Shadows. And they're also expecting another special guest to attend. So who could that be? I guess we will find out. In other Dark Shadows themed events, I mentioned this a while back, but Mysterious Adventures Tours is doing a 6-day Dark Shadows Legacy tour on the 59th anniversary of the TV series. It's going to be happening from June 25th through June 30th, 2025. The itinerary for this tour includes Bucksport, Maine, Newport, Rhode Island, Essex, Connecticut, Tarrytown, New York, and more. It says on the website, join us for the 59th anniversary celebration of when Dark Shadows first appeared on old black and white television sets, making us run home after school to watch the next episode. Step into its mysterious world where gothic tales and supernatural legends come alive in one of the most iconic horror-tinged television series ever produced. Join us on this Dark Shadows Legacy tour, a captivating adventure that will escort its fans through time travel into iconic sites featured or relevant to the 1960s series Dark Shadows. I will put a link in the show notes to the Mysterious Adventures Tour's website so that you can see what's included, the cost, etc. Also, coming soon, the Dark Shadows Paper Doll book is available for pre-order from Hermes Press. Expected to arrive in April 2025, the book has 96 total pages with 48 pieces of art, leaving space for you to cut out the dolls and all their accessories. Featuring 33 characters from the show, this is the only authorized edition of its kind. It's $24.99, and of course the artwork is by Samantha Lomusio. The book is available for pre-order at Hermes Press. And speaking of artwork, another book you can pre-order from Hermes Press is The Art of George Wilson, the incredible artist who painted the Gold Key Dark Shadows comics covers, as well as many, many other striking covers. It's written by the wonderful Rondo Award-winning Anthony Taylor, and that's also available for pre-order at Hermes Press. And finally, my friend Ricardo Rebello, who you heard back in episode 23 of the podcast, has 2 new books out. Dracula at the Disco, which looks at vampire cinema of the 1970s and has a substantial segment on Dark Shadows, and Neon Werewolves, which looks at werewolf films of the 70s and 80s. Rick very thoughtfully dedicated the vampire book to me and the werewolf book to my late husband, Magoo Galerter, who of course was my snarling darling Garou the werewolf on Shilling Shockers. So thank you so much, Rick. You can get both books on Amazon right now as either paperbacks or as Kindle downloads. And with that said, let's get to the ghosts and revenants of Dark Shadows. listen. There are spoilers here for those who listen. You should have stayed where you stood, for now you must experience the terror at Collinwood. And lucky you, because I have two great guests joining me to discuss the ghosts and revenants of Dark Shadows. Katherine Gonzales has been captivated by Dark Shadows since first watching it on the Sci-Fi Channel in summer of 2002. She's been to Dark Shadows festivals from 2004 to 2016, only missing two of them, and several of the fan parties held at Seaview Terrace. She currently writes and creates Dark Shadows music under Discount Artificial Sweetener and acts in Dark Shadows fan videos with Bobby Lugosi on Lugosi Theater, playing Angelique, Maggie Evans, and other characters. Bobby Lugosi, aka Bobby Zier, first saw Dark Shadows when he was 7 and homesick from school, but really got into it when MPI released it on DVD and devoured each volume as soon as it came out. Bobby, who won the 2023 Monster Kid of the Year Rondo Hatton Award, runs Lugosi Theater on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, which focuses on Dracula, classic vampires, and autism, and collaborates with Katherine Gonzales on Dark Shadows fan videos. Dark Shadows is his favorite TV show, and he is honored to be on Terror at Collinwood. Oh, well, he wrote that. I didn't write that. Bobby wrote. Thank you, Bobby. I'm honored to have you both here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh my goodness, what a pleasure. As I'm talking to you, I'm reading this, and right next to this, for the audio listeners, you won't be able to see this, but I will describe it. My friend Aaron gave me this really cool Kolchak
Oh, cool.
That is coaster.
So cool.
So Kolchak is brandishing a cross at me as I'm. I'm um, But yeah, I'm so happy to have you both here. Now, Katherine, I met you over at the Dark Shadows Remembrance Weekend, which was
Yes.
so much fun. I wish that was like every other month. I wish they would do that because that was so cool. And Bobby, we have not met in person, but I've had the pleasure of corresponding with you quite a bit. And you were on episode 6. You submitted an audio clip for that, so that was a while back, but it was a great episode with lots of great clips in that one, and you submitted one of them. So before we jump into talking about the ghosts and revenants of Dark Shadows, I want to hear from both of you. I described a little bit from your bios here how you got into Dark Shadows. So, I guess starting with Katherine, how did you jump? How did you discover Dark Shadows to begin with?
Funnily enough, it was through a ghost. I was channel surfing and I saw this gorgeous man wearing attire, and I went, "What is this?" Came in during the haunting of Collinwood, the 1969 storyline, and it was the episode with Abe Vigoda. And
Oh,
and I didn't know what this was, but I was hooked on it from the first. I thought, okay, I think this guy is a ghost or something, but I mean, he had a presence and a sense of humor, and there were little kids, and I didn't know what was going on, but I thought it was fascinating, and I was just hooked from that moment. I have to find out what this is. Is there more? Is this? I didn't know if it was a movie. I didn't know what it was, but I was hooked on it just from that very moment. So it was a ghost that brought me into Dark Shadows.
how appropriate! How appropriate! I love it. And Bobby, what about you?
Well, as I said, I was 7 years old and home from sick from school, and I remember the episode that was on. It was when they're in 1897, and Jameson has to go into the room where his grandmother's coffin is and get the will. So I didn't know what this show was or anything, but it just like it immediately grabbed me. And then years later, I remember it was my birthday was coming up, and I was looking like what old horror movies are coming out on DVD, and then I saw Dark Shadows, and I remembered it. I remembered it from when I was 7. And I was like, "This sounds like a Dracula TV show. I gotta see it." And then, like, as each volume came out, I remember I I didn't really understand what a soap opera was when I first started watching. So I was like, "What volume 1 ends with a cliffhanger? What's gonna happen next?" So
Yeah,
I just went through it as it came out, and then also as I was watching the DVDs in the morning before I left for school, they were actually showing the 1970s storyline when
oh,
Gerard and Daphne are haunting Collinwood. So I was like watching both back to back.
that's so cool. Oh, wow. So you were already a monster kid. You were already into vampires and Dracula. I know Bela Lugosi is like your hero. I mean, it's so cool watching your videos where you talk about not only Dark Shadows, but about Dracula and all kinds of really cool horror related topics. So, what is it about Dracula that resonated with you too?
I love the idea how it's could be an ordinary man, but also a vampire who has all these powers at the same time.
Uh-huh.
He tricks you into thinking that he's just ordinary, but he's not.
I love it. That's so cool. Yeah, it's true because you take one look at Frankenstein's monster or the Wolfman,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
the Mummy. You know right away this is something on the supernatural being or some creature. But Dracula is it's deceptive
And
with
he's
Dracula.
such a stylish monster too,
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
cape medallion. And Barnabas is like that too, because he's got the
totally.
ring, he's got the cane.
Yes, very much so, definitely. And I love watching. I was just talking right before we started recording. Your videos that you do. That the two of you have done a lot of sketches. While you're doing the reviews, it'll cut to like you performing in a really fun way, doing these sketches. And you said you have one coming up, a Dark Shadows one coming up. What is that one?
Yes, we do. We recreate the famous diner scene when Maggie Evans first meets Barnabas Collins.
Yay! Oh, I can't wait to see that.
And we got the idea when Catherine, I believe you told me that the remembrance that she mentioned that was like her favorite episode.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's what gave us the idea.
Kathy.
Oh, okay. Oh, wonderful. So cool. That's great. Speaking of the remembrance, now, Catherine, you said in your bio, that you attended many of the Dark Shadows festivals and the Seaview parties. How did you get into the fandom aspect of Dark Shadows after watching it?
Once I started watching it, I started researching it
Hmm.
because what is this? Is there, are there people that watch this, like know more about this? Because I was coming in at that point of the show where there was a lot of backstory I didn't understand. They made references to characters and things that I had no clue who they were. So I got online
Hmm.
and I found some great message boards, sites and things. And back when Yahoo Groups was a thing, it was Yahoo Clubs, and then it was Yahoo Groups. And I met a bunch of people through there, and I couldn't make it to the 2003 festival in Terrytown, but I could to the 2004.
Hmm.
So I went there. That was my first one, and I got to put faces to names, and I met even more people. And I met Bob and some other people there, and then they're like, "Oh, well, have you met so and so? Oh, well, this is seen this web page, and have you, kind of like that." And so that's really just kind of how I was kind of thrust into this strange world.
Wonderful. I love it. Now, Bobby, did you ever get to attend any of the festivals or any of the fan events?
I went to one, the 2007 Dark Shadows convention, where Jonathan Frid came back for the 40th anniversary of the character Barnabas Collins. So I only
Yeah.
went to one, but it was spectacular.
Yeah, I was at that one too, so maybe we probably crossed paths there.
Right?
But yeah, that was really exciting because and when Jonathan came out, I mean the roof just practically blew off of that place because it was every standing ovation. That was the one where he kind of hobbled out on the cane and then he was
Yeah,
pretending to and then
it
he
was like
twirled
Willy
it.
Wonka.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That was so great. I loved it. So cool. So I want to preface this by saying that I did an episode with Laramie Dean on the witches and warlocks of Dark Shadows, and I wanted to do one on ghosts with the two of you for quite a while now because ghosts are such a prominent aspect of Dark Shadows. I mean, right away from the very beginning, they're talking about the ghosts in Collinwood, and we're wondering, oh, is this metaphorical, or are there really ghosts at Collinwood? And as we soon find out, not too long after, they're real. There are ghosts at Collinwood, and it's probably the most prevalent supernatural presence at Collinwood. I mean, we have vampires there, we have werewolves, we have witches, and we have zombies and all kinds of other creatures. But ghosts, I mean, Collinwood is talk about a haunted mansion. That is the poster child for a haunted mansion. Tons of ghosts in Collinwood, and I wanna talk about some of our favorites. And I pulled some information from the wiki page as well. But Catherine, you said the first ghost you saw was Quentin's ghost. great first ghost to see. So was yours Gerard Styles, Bobby, or had you already encountered another Dark Shadows ghost prior to that?
That would have been Gerard Styles, yes.
Yeah.
The first, because yeah, because now in the morning I wasn't able to always catch the full episode, but I
Mhm.
remember seeing Gerard Styles and Daphne,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
haunting in Collinwood. Yeah.
Yeah, Daphne too. Yeah, excellent. Very, very cool. I pulled a bunch of information here from the wiki, and I'm going to give a little background here. Ghosts in Dark Shadows seem to possess an array of powers. They vary depending on the nature, personality, and strength of the spirit. Ghosts are primarily incorporeal, but can sometimes attain a degree of physical existence in the material world. This physical incarnation can usually only be maintained for a short time. Their clothing and attire appearing as an outward extension of how they appeared in life, usually related to their native time periods. Depending on how powerful the spirit is, they can inflict physical harm on the living. Ghosts are also capable of creating psychokinetic events, poltergeist activity, in other words, and can move objects and open doors and windows. Ghosts can sometimes take possession of a living host, eventually fully inhabiting the body of a person and essentially usurping that person's personality and taking control of them. This process usually forces the host body's consciousness into a sleep-like state where they are aware but unable to control their actions. A malevolent ghost can also have a manipulative and corrupting influence on its victim, causing the hapless person to commit evil acts on the spirit's behalf. One who is under the spirit's influence can suffer terrifying mental, spiritual, and physical punishment. For instance, the ghost of Quentin Collins caused young David Collins to believe that his own arm was on fire. While no actual fire could be seen, burns manifested on David's arm. Some ghosts can induce what appears to be fatal heart attacks in their victims. This is a very deadly ability, usually resulting in the deceased victim's face being frozen in an expression of pure terror. Certain ghosts are accompanied by a specific scent, often one they enjoyed in life. Certain ghosts use music to make their presence known, and sometimes this music can be used to hypnotic effect. There are also weaknesses that ghosts have. Spirits can be exorcised via the rite of exorcism, although the ritual may not work against particularly powerful ghosts. Some spirits are summoned for a purpose and may not be given a choice in what they do. Other spirits can be summoned against their will and commanded to perform a certain task by a witch or sorcerer. Often, a summoned ghost simply wishes to return to its grave so that it can be at peace. Summoning a ghost can cause them some degree of distress until they are allowed to return. Some ghosts are able to speak, while others are eerily mute. A mute spirit who has a living person under their influence seems to be able to communicate with them via some form of mental telepathy. Ghosts who can speak sometimes do so in a cryptic manner. For example, Sarah tended to speak in an evasive way when she relayed information. So she wasn't supposed to tell the secret of how to escape the basement cell in the old house. So she gave Maggie a riddle and to tell her how to do that. Now, Revenants, on the other hand, is a similar creature to ghosts. And so I've heard, for example, Jeremiah Collins, when he returns from the dead, I've heard him described as a zombie. A revenant is sort of somewhere in the middle between a ghost and a zombie in a sense. Somebody like Jeremiah or Joanna Mills, for example. Revenants are often depicted as semi-corporeal, meaning they can exist in both a physical and ghostly state. They are often described as having rotting flesh with exposed bones and a skull-like head. They are often said to rise from the dead to seek revenge or terrorize the living. So I would, even though I don't think they use the word revenant in Dark Shadows, that's more what I would say Jeremiah Collins for sure is, and probably I would say Joanna too. So let's talk about, that was a lot of information about ghosts and Dark Shadows, and that's just scratching the surface. There are lots of other abilities and strange things that we see ghosts do in the show. And they're the most, I guess, diverse group of supernatural creatures that we see in the show in terms of what they do or their motivations and things like that. So I guess I want to talk about just like some of our favorites, our top five. Let's do our top five. So I'm just going to kind of bounce around and we'll each kind of we'll start five and work our way up to one. How does that sound?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great.
Groovy, cool. See, I love that you say groovy on your Bobby on your show, because I always say that. I have not let go of the word groovy. That's
It's such a groovy word. And unlike what Professor Stokes says, it is too a word. Because Marie says that. You don't hear him say it, but like on the phone, you say it is to a word.
I love it. I love it. Um, all right. So, Bobby, what's your number five for working our way from five to one? What's your number five, Ghost?
My number five would be Gerard Stiles.
Gerard Styles.
The
Why?
first ghost I saw. Honestly, he's so frightening. He's so every James Storm is so good at making the most monstrous, and he's such a handsome man, but he's so good at making those monstrous, ugly faces. And when you first meet him, he's in the Collinwood of 1995. It is completely destroyed, and you don't know how he did it, but you know he's responsible in these haunting these grounds, and it's like you have never seen a ghost like this before. He's so powerful, and he's even able to make Julia betray Barnabas.
Which is huge. I mean, we've never seen that. You know, that's something that would cause Julia to betray Barnabas. That has the will to impose on her, to cause her to do that, for sure. Yeah, terrifying. Yeah. How about you, Catherine?
Mine would be Joanna Mills,
Oh,
actually,
cool, awesome.
as she's the most unghost-like ghost, really,
Hmm.
of the series, and it's such a wonderful twist because when we first hear about Joanna Mills and we're first kind of introduced to her story arc and her kind of her backstory, she's already dead. So it's established that she is dead, and it becomes established that we know she's dead because Samantha killed her. So when she showed up, and here she is, looking perfectly alive in the courtroom, it's kind of, hey, is this a trick? What is this? And when she says things like, well, touch my hand, my hand is warm, and that you're able to touch her, and she feels very much flesh and blood, she feels very much warm and alive, that you go, okay, so she has to be alive, right? And then here comes that big twist. It's like, no, she was actually dead. Back for revenge. And it's just kind of like this wow, because we haven't had anything quite like that on the show. And I mean, there's some things that have kind of been similar, but I mean nothing like that. And so I think that's one to make her really stand out, and that's why I picked her as my top five, and why I didn't think Bobby was going to pick her.
And she also has a great theme song, too, the Joanna's theme, and actually Gerard too, with the carousel, with the
Uh-huh.
playroom theme. But yeah, and when she finally shows her true face and it's that skull, it is such a shock. It's like, what? She was dead this entire time. That's why I see her. I kind of see her in the category more of a revenant, because she's back. She's there for that purpose. She's back. She will eventually will get revenge, but she seems very corporeal, and she's interacting with people at Collinwood, and she's around. She hangs around for a few weeks before she's reveals herself. It is quite the twist, for sure. Great choice there. I wasn't expecting Joanna. That's really cool. My number five is actually a major spirit in the show. Two, Josette. It was the ghost of Josette Dupre Collins, because she's such a key figure in Dark Shadows from day one. She's right in those pre-Barnabas episodes, especially. The spirit of Josette is a benevolent spirit. She's an example of a benevolent. She's there to help Victoria Winters. She's friends with David. David sees her and talks to her. She helps save Vicky from Matthew Morgan. And then she subsequently, even after Barnabas shows up and he says, "Oh, this is my house now," but she still comes back to help Barnabas when Barnabas is in trouble. Josette shows up, and I love the scent of jasmine and the eerie, weird kind of ghostly music that they play, and just in that scene where she first manifests when the book opens by itself to her page in the family history. And that's only a few weeks into the show. I think like maybe not even 3 months into the show. But then when we finally do see her come out of the painting, that looks like something you'd see in, footage, like camera footage in a paranormal investigator show, where we caught this on film, and you see her walking down. It's such an eerie image. It still gives me goosebumps when I think of that image. Just an excellent, important part of the show. And I know it was sad, like after Katherine left the show, Josette. I mean, we still had Josette with Mary Cooper in 1841 Parallel Time, but the ghost of Josette was not a presence anymore. So that's my pick for 5. Now, what about 4? What about number 4, Bobby?
My number 4 would be Daphne Harridge.
Oh, good choice.
I love her. So again, they go back to how Josette, it was the scent of jasmine when she was present, and they bring that back where it's the scent of lilacs.
Yeah.
And now Daphne Harridge, for those who don't remember, she was at the near the end, later part of the series. So they bring and Alexander Mulkey, Victoria Winters wasn't on anymore, but Kate Jackson, she kind of has that Victoria Winters look to her, and we find out that she was a governess, so she has that. She has this very classical Dark Shadows look. No, what I love about her, I noticed, is how subtle Kate Jackson's acting is. She's like very, very minimalist. It's with her eyes, very subtle motions, and it feels very ghostly. But also, like you find yourself like looking into her eyes. Is she a good ghost? Is she evil ghost? And is she sort of in between because she loves Carrie and Tad, and will do anything for them. Anything, no matter what she has to destroy to get them back.
Agree. Great choice with Daphne. I love Daphne too, for the reasons you said. And it is kind of ambiguous when you first meet her. It's like, what is she? Evil, or is she good, or is she somewhere in between? And then then she's Quentin becomes obsessed with her, and she's kind of really going, her ghost is kind of like leading him down this path where he's lying to Barnabas and Julia, and there's a scene where she's holding the dagger behind his back, and it's like, is she bad? And they're doing this whole the Beckoning Fair one. The Beckoning Fair, the Turn of the Screw, there are definitely aspects of that too, but Beckoning Fair one, where this man moves into an apartment. He's a writer, and he moves into an apartment. He falls in love with the ghost of this woman, and he becomes like extremely obsessed with her to the point, to his own detriment, and then to the detriment of others as well. This is, they're pulling from that, but then as you point out, then she goes against Gerard when it comes to the children. She does love the children, and then we see, she actually has a good heart. She's actually a good person. And I like that you mentioned the comparison with Vicky too, because I think it was Rachel Pulliam, when I had her on the show. We talked about how if they were going to recast Vicky, I think Kate Jackson would have been an excellent choice. If they had to recast Alexandra, like they did with Betsy Durkin and later with Carolyn Groves. But I know later on, Dan Curtis wanted, as we know, wanted Alexandra to come back, and she didn't want to unless she got to play a monster or a villain or something. But it's like, well, if Kate Jackson would have made I think a good Vicky if they had gone down that road.
Yeah, I agree, and it's so fascinating that you mentioned that, is because if Kate Jackson wasn't did an audition or wasn't in the cards for that, I bet you Alexander Mulkey would have that would have been just what she wanted to come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So it would have been really cool. But I love I love what we got with I'm glad we got Daphne. It was a great character.
She's amazing.
Yeah. Now, what about you, Katherine? What is your number 4?
My number 4 is another interesting choice.
Uh-huh.
Going to be Pansy Faye.
Oh, great choice. I love Pansy.
Love it that we get two different versions of Pansy, but it's all Pansy. Mm-hmm. Because we first see the ghost of Pansy Faye as played by Kay Fry, who originated the role of Pansy. And she's just as theatrical in death as she was in life. And she enters, humming or singing, and and the dream that she gives Carl, where she's putting on her psychic performance, and she talks about how the show must go on, and I love all that theatricality of it. And then later, when she is basically possessing the body of Charity Trask due to of Count Petofi, it is Pansy Faye. It is her spirit. She has all these memories and all of that, and it's just as lively and it's just as theatrical, and I love so much that we got to see Nancy do that, because it's such a wonderful contrast to, Charity Trask and, Pansy Faye. And I mean, Nancy Barrett is a brilliant, wonderful actress, and so I love that. And I think Pansy is such an interesting spirit, because, again, it's one of those that it's not just, coming in to give a clue or to cry or, any of that. I mean, when she comes back, as into the body of Charity Trask, she is essentially living and breathing, but she's a spirit. So that's really interesting, and that's really fascinating. I mean, as far as we know, she stayed with Charity Trask till the day Charity Trask died. We don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I love that the character was able to continue in that way, and I think it's just fascinating.
Agree, 100%. I love Pansy Faye in all her incarnations. The Kay Fry Pansy Faye when she was alive, and then in the ghostly state as well, in the dream. I love that, and then of course the amazing Nancy Barrett, possessed by Pansy. What a great performance and a great character, great choice for a ghost as well. I like to imagine that in the afterlife, that Carl Collins ghost possessed somebody, and that Carl and Pansy are somehow reunited via possession of. um, and it's interesting too that I don't know if you heard that there's a big finish audio they did where Nancy Barrett plays Charity when she's older, and she's still, her and Pansy share the same body, like Pansy still possesses Charity, but they interact with each other, like they're both
Great.
spirits inside her body, which is really interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, I forgot which one that was. I'll have to, if I think of it, I'll put it up on the screen. But yeah, that's a good one. My number 4 is The Revenant of Jeremiah Collins. What a horrifying character. Just and it just it I remember watching that when I was a kid and being scared of that. Jeremiah's you see that when you see the hand come out of the grave, and then he's summoned by Angelique, and she loses control of this creature, and then he takes her and goes to bury her in the grave, and he's dropping the dirt on her, and the voice, that deep voice, and just the bandages is sort of a horrifying image, and that of. I mean, something out of an EC horror comic is what it's like, the Tales from the Crypt kind of a thing, but really very visceral. And then he continues to haunt Collinwood even into 1897. At least we see Jeremiah appears to Kitty Soames to warn her about Barnabas, and I thought it was. I mean, it was not a major ghost in the show, but an important one, I would say, for sure. An vengeful kind of spirit, like he destroys the room. Like I remember in 1795, like the room is locked. They open the door. He's just wrecked everything in the room. He's just out of control. Really memorable creature in the show. That's
I agree. And it shows like how Angelique spells, how they could be even worse than she imagines.
Yes, for sure. That's Angelique.
Right?
that impulsive, like,
because she thought that he would obey her orders, but she did such a great job of casting the spell that now he's like unstoppable,
Yeah, and she thinks somebody else is controlling him. She's like, but I think he's just operating under his own agency. He's broken free of her control. But it really creepy character. How about your number 3, Bobby?
My number 3 would be Sarah Collins.
Oh, Sarah.
Sister. Yeah, I love her. First of all, I want to say, like, she does such a great job having this like very calm sort of old soul personality. She really comes across, even though it's just her acting, she really comes across as a ghost. And how I love is how it's sort of how Josette in the early on was sort of, she was the one helping fighting against Laura. Now we have Sarah fighting against Barnabas, but with a twist. is that she's protecting, Maggie Evans and David from Barnabas, but also protecting Barnabas from himself. By protecting Maggie, Barnabas doesn't have to feel guilty about killing her. Barnabas doesn't have to feel guilty about killing David. So she's seeing the good in him, and I thought that scene where she finally sees Barnabas has been desperate to see Sarah, has been looking for, and knows that she's kind of working again, to help Maggie. And when Sarah finally appears to Barnabas, he's right in the middle of choking Julia, and she appears and makes him recite the poem that they learned as children about being good. And then Sarah disappears and says, "I won't come back to your good." And that scene is heartbreaking.
Oh, big time.
That scene is heartbreaking, and it's Sharon Smith. She does such a wonderful job, and it brings so much out of Jonathan Frid too, because that's in those early episodes. That's Barnabas's conscience. That's the part of him that's human.
Excellent. Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. Sarah's on my list too, so I'm going to add comments to what you just said when I get to her on my list, but I completely agree with everything you said about Sarah Collins. An extremely important figure in Dark Shadows, in the mythology of Dark Shadows, like a key figure in the mythology of Dark Shadows, 100%. How about you, Katherine? What's your number 3?
My number 3 would be Julianka.
Julianka. Oh, cool. Awesome.
I think outside the box here,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely outside the box choices. Very cool.
I love her regality,
Mhm.
when she's alive and even when she's dead, and she just has this kind of regal sort of attitude, and she pulls no punches with Magda, as a ghost. It's like, you will suffer tears and graves and more tears, and there will be 3 knocks on the door, and just really kind of lets her have it, because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
you caused this, and so I'm coming after you, and I love it because she's not over the top with it. She's just as kind of poised and flipped, and just like, even though this horrible thing has happened to her, she's pissed about it. She's like, I do not like death, and she lets her have it.
Yeah.
I love that about this character, that she's just still the same in death, and that she's one of those that is going to kind of just get right up in Magda's face, and
I totally agree. Yes.
Me too.
yeah.
Yes. Love her. Love her. She was fantastic. Diana Davila. And I love what you said. Like, her personality as a ghost, it's still intact. She's still Julianka. She's still the same. Excellent performance there. I'd like to think that she would come back, like that we would see her again show up down the road somewhere, especially if Patofi came back. It would be great if Julianka came back to haunt Count Patofi or something. Great choice. My number 3 is the ghost of Gerard Stiles, who we later find out is Judah Zachary, or it's just in the form of Gerard Stiles. So, I mean, Bobby covered what I would say about him. He is such a memorable and malignant presence when he appears. Genuinely a very chilling character, chilling performance by James Storm. When you first see him with that sneer, it's just like, whoa. Because I'm going to talk about Quentin too, because he's on my list too. But Quentin was he was evil, the ghost of Quentin, but he was a more jovial kind of a figure. Gerard, there was nothing jovial about Gerard. He was not a happy camper, Gerard. He was definitely a scary ghost on Dark Shadows, and a memorable one for sure. So what about your number 2, Bobby? Who's your number 2?
You have no idea what a great segue you did. My number 2 is Quentin Collins.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Whereas, Gerard, he is that haunting figure. Quentin Collins, he was inspired by the ghost Peter Quint from Turn of the Screw.
Mm-hmm.
And just like how Barnabas is sort of like Dracula, but more developed, really dive into the personality. That's what Quentin's like. He's like really explored that personality, where he's an arrogant ghost. He could be mean, but there's that, you get the sense of humor. You get his personality. And even like you can see his relationship when they go in the past, his relationship with Jameson, how he is with David. You could see like those moments of like pride on his face when when David's doing what he wants him to do.
Yep.
And the like that sense of fun, like when he like disguises the big dummy Mr. Juggins to be in place.
Mhm.
And I also love how Quentin, how he yes, he has the physical presence and they do a great job with the makeup and David Selby, he's no slouch with the scary face department either. He does a great scary face and everything, but he also has that great laugh when you don't see him and you hear that haunting laugh. And the idea of hearing the breathing with the telephone that's disconnected. And of course, his music, the Shadows of the Night, it's such a haunting theme. And that the last, when he drives them out of Collinwood, is so terrifying. Because, you're used to seeing Victoria Winter scream, and you're used to seeing Maggie Evans scream. But for him to scare Professor Stokes, and for him to scare Roger Collins, and for Roger Collins to say, yes, we've got to get out of Collinwood, then things are serious.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, everything you said is right on point. Totally agree with you. And I'm gonna say some things about Quentin too when I get to him, but I 100% agree with you. An iconic figure in Dark Shadows for sure. Catherine, what about you? Who's your number two?
My number two would be Sarah.
Awesome.
Or a lot of the reasons that we've already gone over, but also she is most like a lot of spirits that I've encountered. I've gone ghost hunting. I've been to haunted locations.
Oh, really? Cool.
And with a lot of child spirits, they are very much like Sarah. A lot of them are kind of, where is everybody? Everybody left, and I don't know why this happened, and I don't understand this. And maybe they can be with their answers too, either because no, or they don't. Her, but with her spirit, that really kind of resonated with me. Kind of some experience with that, and it's very, very true to child spirits that I've encountered.
Have you ever gotten, since you went on ghost hunts, did you get like EVPs of talking and things like that?
I have, and the crazy thing is, a lot of the ones that I have got really good stuff on, things have happened to. So either the file somehow gets corrupted.
Oh, interesting.
I lost a video camera that I took to Seaview, and it had some stuff on it, and I have no idea where this camera went, where the card went. I don't know where it went. So I mean, I've had things like that happen. I've also had a lot of audible things happen that I don't have that to show. That's happened quite a lot.
Seaview is notoriously haunted from. I mean, I did an episode where I talked to several fans who stay at the house and told me their experiences, and ghost hunters went there in one of their episodes.
Several, and I've encountered at least 7 different spirits there, at least.
Wow.
Residual haunting, which is
and residual, which is kind of history being recorded, basically, right? Versus like an actual ghost, right?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Some pretty wild. It's easy to imagine that house could be haunted being in there. I mean, it's just immense and old, and there's a feeling there of something spectral, perhaps lurking in the house. And so the lady, the elderly lady, I forget her name, Mrs. What's that?
Mrs. Bradley. That was the wife.
That's right, Mrs. Bradley. That's the one everybody was talking about when I was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen her.
Have you really? What did you see?
I was sleeping down on the couch in the sunroom. I'd fallen asleep with a couple people. We were up talking late, and I fell asleep. And I woke up. There was fire in the fireplace, and the lights were off. Everybody had gone to bed, and I woke up because I felt somebody come in, but I didn't see anybody. So I sat up and I kind of, was getting my bearings. I'm like, well, do I go up to bed now? Should I just go back to bed here? It's nice and warm in front of the fire. And the shadowy out, this woman walked in the doors from, where the hallway is. Here's the stairs, kind of by the kitchen area there, and walked into sunroom. And there was a tray, a table that had been set up for the, party with all kinds of snacks and things. And she just walked over, walking by the table, and she's just serving like a hostess. And I got this feeling very much that she's being the hostess, and she's looking to ensure that people have what, where she was just kind of checking out like the party setup. And I know it was Mrs. Bradley because that was the impression that she gave, very much like, okay, this is my house. I'm the hostess. I'm making sure that, all goes well, kind of thing.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, really wild. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating. My number 2 is The Ghost of Sarah Collins. I have my little Sarah Collins bag right back there. When I met Sharon, she gave me the bag. It was so sweet. I love Sarah. Ever since I was a kid, she's such a sweet being of good, of light, that tries to help others in the best way she can. She's limited in that she can't directly do certain things or say certain things, but she tries to help Maggie. She does help Maggie. She helps David. She tries to help David. She becomes friends. I love that friendship between David and Sarah. That's so touching. And she is such a tragic figure to this day. I mean, when I watch the scene that Bobby was talking about, where Barnabas has been desperate to see Sarah, and he finally does, and she tells him that rhyme. She makes him say that rhyme that nursery rhyme that he taught her when she was a child, that evil is wicked is well understood. The wicked are punished, so you must be good. And when I had John Logan on the show, the Tony Award winning, Oscar nominated screenwriter, he's a huge Dark Shadows fan. And he pointed to that line as the key to Dark Shadows. All the characters in Dark Shadows have to answer that question. Are you going to be good, or are you going to be evil? What is the choice you're going to make? It's not easy to be. You have to make that call, and it's about redemption, and can you find redemption? And Sarah, it's such a huge moment, but I always cry when I see that scene, and the scene where Sarah dies too, in 1795. And then you hear the flute, the da, 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 and it's just like, oh my God, it's just heart-wrenching. But she's such a key character in the show, and I think deserves more credit often in discussions and things like that about Dark Shadows. I think Sarah is pivotal, particularly to the trajectory of Barnabas's character. Up until that point, Barnabas is kind of doing a lot of bad stuff, and Sarah tells him, you're not going to see me again until you change your ways. Great character. She tries to help Dr. Woodard even. I mean, and she's mad at Julia because Julia's helping Barnabas when she appears to Julia. Great stuff. All right, let's get to our number 1 choices here. Bobby, what's your number 1 choice?
The Ghost of Josette Collins.
Aha, awesome. I had a feeling it was going to be Josette.
So she is the first ghost on the show. And when you go in and watch the beginning episodes, they talk about how Collinwood is haunted. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, looking back, when you know the history of it, of how Dan Curtis did it because his kids wanted to make him spooky, you understand how that came about. But also, if you just watch it just as a viewer, it feels like they're setting it up. Because you're hearing stories, you hear the sobbing, and Vicky hears the sobbing in the basement. And then the first appearance of Josette is when it's in the drawing room, no one's down there, you don't see it, and a book falls to the floor. And that is so neat, because when I was a baby, I actually lived in a haunted house.
Really?
And so you have the perfect 2 guests, Penny Dreadful.
I love it. I have to hear this story about the haunted house too.
And it was that I was just a baby, but my grandma told me that I would be sleeping in my crib, and I had these like like a Mickey and Goofy dolls. And they had, and you had to like press the button for them to work. I would be in my crib, but they would start like activating on their own.
Oh, weird. Wow.
Yeah, and that like the book falling to the floor, that's sort of like that, where it's just like this like strange thing that like maybe there's a logical explanation, but maybe not, So and then as you mentioned, her first appearance when she steps out of the portrait and you see her going through on the grounds of Collinwood. First of all, I know like as Dark Shadows fans, sometimes we love like laughing at the bat on the wire and stuff like that, but that special effect is done so well.
Yes.
And especially with how it's the on location footage they do it feels very real. And that's what I love about the Ghost of Josette is it's that transitionary period of going from gothic drama to supernatural soap opera, and she feels very real. And I love how she gets involved with the plots, and how and again you smell the scent of jasmine of not jasmine.
Yeah, it's Josette is jasmine.
Yeah, you're
Daphne
right.
is lilac.
Yeah, lilac.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And how she's guiding Vicky to defeat Laura Collins, and then later, because I saw the Barnabas, Josette, and Angelique triangle before I went back and saw the original episodes.
Mhm.
Those were the last ones I saw, and yeah, a few little details they changed, but it fits. You see why, like what was later added, how that fits into why Josette would haunt Collinwood and why she would be a protector of the Collins family.
Yes, 100% agree. Yeah. It's funny how it just happened organically but it feels like watching it feels like it was planned, like, but like you said, like, and there's this buildup. It's like this simmering where it just starts to bubble and bubble and bubble, and it becomes more progressively more supernatural as it goes along. But Josette, it was such a key figure there. And I love that you called out the helping against Laura Collins too. I love that dynamic too between Laura and Josette, the ghost of Josette, and trying to combat Laura Collins and helping the Collins family, protecting the Collins family. Great, really great stuff. And it's thank goodness that Catherine Lee Scott, when they were going to film that scene, as I'm sure you both know, they were going to use a clothes dummy as the ghost of Josette. And she was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, we're going to have the ghost of Josette." She said, "That looks fake. I'll do it. Let me do it." And she thankfully, Catherine did that because it looks sensational. It still holds up. That is an effect that totally still holds up. And then when she's eerily kind of dancing around the columns in front of the old house, it's such a just this spirit alone in the dark dancing, or such an eerie image.
And it feels so real.
It does. It really does. Yeah, big time. Catherine, what about you? What's your number one?
Quentin Collins.
Yay!
Hey.
I love how complex his character really is. I mean, even before we go back to 1897, because he's one note evil. Where Gerard feels very one note evil. I mean, that sense of humor. He's got a charisma to him, even when he's doing horrible things.
Yes.
He's got a commanding sense of power, and he feels very much like, hey, I'm the one in control. This is my house. And especially when leaves here and it's completely empty and it's just him, and that's when you really feel like he did it. He is that powerful. They're gone. What's going to happen now? Because his power kind of builds as much as his character development builds, as much as his appearances on the show build. Every time you see this guy, you're like, what's his story? What is he going to do? Why is he doing this? And we find out, after we go to the past, that a lot of these horrible things may not have been quite so evil, like with poisoning Chris. When you think about it, it's like, okay, this guy was a werewolf. He went through all this stuff. Maybe that was him trying to do a good thing.
Trying to stop the curse. Yeah, his curse.
So it kind of makes think. Like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe not as much of a bad guy. Maybe he didn't have to hurt a lot of these people. He just wanted to scare them, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really interesting that he's not that kind of complete evil spirit in the way that Gerard is like this complete evil spirit.
Mhm. He has, you find out his motivations and about being rejected by Jameson, and how that's like in the afterlife that becomes like a fixation with him, especially when he sees David. Whereas Gerard is, I mean, it's basically it's the Drew to Zachary. You just there isn't a whole lot of dimension there. Like you said, there is no sympathetic aspect to Gerard. Yes, once he was possessed, after when
Mm-hmm.
Gerard was a scoundrel, but he wasn't like as what Drew Zachary was, which was really malignantly evil. And you get the sense that there's no real sympathetic aspect to to the spirit of Gerard. My number one is also Quentin, for many of the reasons
Mm-hmm.
mentioned already. He's the spirit of Quentin, the ghost of Quentin. When I watched that, I mean that stuck with me too. It's one of my favorite storylines. Not my top favorite, but it's definitely on my top five storylines. Is that turn of the screw, the ghosts of Quentin and Beth, and Quentin is insidious as a ghost because he proceeds in this gradual, subtle way, and just with gradually increasing harmful effects to what he's doing. Because at first it's just on the phone, and it's our ghost friend that we talk to on the phone. Oh, we're gonna play the game, and it's fun, and he gets the children to do these things, and like Bobby said, when they do what he wants, he's laughs, and he's like they're all in on it together, and Quentin's the ringleader of what they're doing, but it gradually becomes awful. Like it tried to kill Roger by putting the string across the stairs, and all this kind of stuff, and ultimately he wants to kill them, especially David, to take them into the afterlife with him. But everything about that ghost of Quentin, he's so charismatic, but scary when he wants to be too. Like with the arched eyebrow when he's mad, and he has that look on his face, and it's like, oh, uh-oh. But he's also just compelling, fun, so much fun to watch. There's Is an iconic figure in the history of Dark Shadows, and it's no surprise that he became like a huge part of the show, especially. And when we go to 1897, and then it's like when he starts talking, he's even more fun to watch. A really great character, really great visual too, a very striking look to him with the sideburns and the frock coat and everything, and the music, that gramophone music, so sad and eerie. And I still get chills when I think about when he took over Collinwood, and the camera just
Mm-hmm.
pans to every room. I remember watching that on Channel 58 in syndication. Like, oh my goodness, wow, it was just like such a great end to an episode. When Roger says, "We'll be back, have no doubt of that," which I always say to my dog Crispy when I leave the house. When I have to go to work, I go, "I'll be back, have no doubt of that." But then the camera's like panning through all of Collinwood as the music plays, with the echo effect on it too. And then at the end, when that on the landing, and you see Quentin triumphantly has taken over Collinwood, and he's ha ha ha, and he's laughing, and it's just, what a great scene that is. I mean, such an awesome scene. I love it. And great character too. So he's my number one choice as well. Is there honorable mentions? Any honorable mentions from either of you? Bobby, you got any honorable mentions?
Yes, so they were quite on the series, but I thought so. I saved them for the honorable mentions.
Okay.
The Ghost of Angelique in Night of Dark Shadows.
Oh, good call. Very
Yeah,
good call.
she is. She's ethereal, beautiful, but like evil too. And she's. I love like all the like Dan Curtis. He really took advantage of making a movie, and he. I mean, yeah, yes, it's they're not able to do the Angelique character we know on the show like that, but she is so amazing as a ghost. And then my second honorable mention would be Jerry Lacey is Jacob Marley in the Dark Shadows Christmas Carol.
Oh, so cool. That's an unexpected choice, but awesome. But a great choice.
I thought he was so because he's like bitter. You could see him as Marley. You could see him being just as mean and Scrooge like a Scrooge, but there's also that air of tragedy.
Yeah, totally agree. Jerry Lacey, I mean, anything Jerry Lacey does is incredible. But yeah, he was a great choice for Jacob Marley from that cast. When they did that, when I found out he was playing Jacob Marley, I was like, that's absolutely perfect. Perfect choice. How about you, Catherine? Any honorable mentions?
Well, it is and it isn't a ghost, because if you remember the photo that David took of was it Maggie and Quentin at a picnic or something, and the
Yeah.
Victoria Winters hanging, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was I was thinking of the other one with Gerard showing up in the background. Yeah.
was one, but there was the picture that David
It was
took.
Barnabas and Carolyn, I believe, in
It
the
was
picture.
Barnabas and Carolyn,
Yeah.
and an
Ah,
image of Vicky, hanging, you know,
Mm.
and it's not even like an actual ghost, but it is like a this phantom image that spurs Barnabas into, trying to save Vicky. And so she doesn't, become a ghost, which is ridiculous because she's, 200 years in the past. So, I mean, obviously she will be a ghost at some point.
Yeah.
but I thought that was very interesting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
very.
that's a striking image for sure. Yeah, with her hanging in the background. I have a few. The widows. Um, the widows are another early, ghosts in Dark Shadows, who kind of help kill Matthew Morgan. When they all descend on Matthew Morgan with Bill Malloy's ghost, he's also an honorable mention. But just the widows wailing, on Widow's Hill when you hear that, so it's the widows. I mean, they're overlooking the Atlantic Ocean and these turbulent water waves crashing on the rocks, and just this legend of the widows waiting for their husbands to come back. And when they realize they're not coming back, they kill themselves. And there's these ghosts that just hang out on Widow's Hill. I love that. It's very spooky. Ghost of Daphne is on my. She could have been in my top 5 too. I love Daphne too, but I gave her an honorable mention. Ghost of Reverend Trask. We were talking about Jerry Lacey just now. I love when the ghost of Reverend Trask comes back when
oh my,
they
yeah.
have the seance, and then he goes off the rails too because they tell him the witch is Cassandra, and he goes after Cassandra, and he goes and does his own thing. And I love when Nicholas Blair and Reverend Trask's ghost have that scene with each other too. I love that scene. And Ghost of Brutus Collins in 1841 Parallel Time. I mean, he looks like something out of a Shakespeare play with his big beard and the ruffled collar. That Louis Edmonds was great in that. And the ghost of Bill Malloy, as I said, dripping with seaweed. One of the early ghosts after David locks Vicky in that room, and you see the ghost of Bill Malloy singing "What Can You Do with a Drunken Sailor." Great image. He's one I wish had come back, and I guess after Matthew Morgan was dispatched, I guess his murderer is now gone, so he does not need to haunt Collinwood anymore. But who knows? You never know. I would have liked to have seen him come back at some point.
And I love the conversation that Roger and Elizabeth have after Elizabeth finds the seaweed. And she says to Roger, Roger, even when you were a kid, did you ever see anything that you thought could be a ghost? And Roger says, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen things and thought things, I felt things like I don't understand.
Yes. Yeah.
And that just like it leaves you to your imagination. What was their childhood like?
Oh, big time. They've seen. I mean, they hinted at that more than once. There was that great scene. There was another scene too where Rogers, says, we've seen things in this house that we can't explain. It was something to that effect, and Liz doesn't just is quiet. They've certainly had, but with the stiff upper lip of the Collins family, they will not acknowledge that they have seen those things. But they both know that stuff has gone on in that house and that they've both seen things they can't explain. That's a great scene. I love that. And then the seaweed, doesn't she say to burn the seaweed, like to get rid of it? Yeah, they just get rid of the evidence. Like, let's pretend this never happened.
Nothing leaves the drawing room. Right.
The Collins families are the masters of sticking their heads in the sand and pretending this is not happening. I also want to give an honorable mention to the ghost of Beth Chavez, a very tragic, sad figure in Dark Shadows. Unlike Daphne, who you don't know if she's good or evil, she's sort of morally ambiguous for a while until you start to see more of her personality come out. Beth is sort of this very enigmatic, sad figure. She doesn't come across as malevolent in any way. It's more she's sort of sadly going along with what Quentin is doing and trying to help in the best way she can. Any other thoughts on Ghosts of Dark Shadows?
I really like, when you talk about Louis Edmonds, I really like in 1970 Parallel Time when they have the seance and the ghost of Barnabas's father comes.
Oh, Joshua.
Yes, Joshua, because in that time, Barnabas was a regular guy. He was never a vampire. But this Joshua is very much so like the patriarch, and he's, going to, like protect his family. And he's got that great kind of cape thing, and he's very regal, And I thought that was really cool, too, that like even in this other, band of time, that there's still these ghosts in this house. And, they are like the characters that we know, but they're different, but they're still Collinses,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That's a good call there with Parallel Time, Ghost of Joshua. Yeah. He's in another scene too, where Barnabas goes to the cemetery, and he appears to Barnabas, and he says, "You're not my son," because he just senses, I guess, that he's from a parallel band of time. It's not the same, or that he's not his Barnabas. Also in Parallel Time, the Best Dressed Ghost award goes to Damien Edwards, the ghost of Damien. Wow. The 1970s fashion lives on. I would like to imagine that in 2025 Parallel Time, they still are dressed exactly like that, with the ascots and the, orange and avocado. That never went out of style in 1970 Parallel Time. The Ghost of Angelique in Night of Dark Shadows is an excellent call, by the way. And I don't know if I ever showed this on the podcast. I might have shown this before, but there's a company called, this is for the audio listeners, I'm showing off this model of the Ghost of Angelique from A Night of Dark Shadows. And this model is done by Rise 3D Models. And it was painted for me by Rick Pastore, who did an incredible job with it. But yeah, she looks awesome. She's like with her white diaphanous gown, and she has her arm up like she does on the VHS cover. Yeah, really cool model kit.
I love that, because with House of Dark Shadows, you got a vampire story. With Night of Dark Shadows, it's very much a ghost story.
It is, yeah.
Angelique's movie, really. I mean, yeah, you've got you playing two different characters, all of this going on, and you got, Kate Jackson and Grayson Hall, but it's Angelique's movie. It really is. She's like the focus of that film. And I hope that they, reassemble, all the cut footage and everything. And because, I mean, if they hadn't cut that film, it would have been absolutely phenomenal. It would have just been a masterpiece, I think, and
it's a shame they cut it so much out of it. And I really hope, I mean, from what I understand, it's closer to happening than it's ever been before. So, don't give up hope, folks. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but it's going to happen. It's just, I think, a matter of not if, but when it's going to happen. But fingers crossed if everything goes well. But from what I hear, it is going pretty well. So let's hope that continues to be the case, and that the curse of Collinwood does not descend upon us once again. I'm glad you mentioned that restoration as far as like a future thing, because I like asking, guests on the podcast, like what their hopes are for the future of Dark Shadows. Is Dark Shadows going to be a ghost in the future? What are our hopes for the future of Dark Shadows?
I think Dark Shadows will always be around in some form or another.
Mm-hmm.
Good Gothics don't die. And
Yes.
they may be recycled in some form or another. But I think because Dark Shadows is so wonderfully rich with its storytelling and its characters and just the feelings that it inspires in so many of us, that I think that there are people out there who are the torchbearers and that will continue to keep the Collins family and Collinwood and all of these wonderful stories alive in some way, however we can. I've been writing Dark Shadows music for the past, several months, and doing things that way, and telling stories and talking about characters in song form. And
Can you send me the link to that again so that I'm going to put that in the show notes if that's cool.
sure, I have several finished albums. I'm working on volume 2 of 1890 storyline, and simultaneously working on volume 3 of music from the East Wing, which is all story. But in the first 2 volumes, it kind of ended like at the end of 1897, because I've been rewatching the show. Because with the later storylines, I really only saw maybe once or some parts of it, a few times. So I'm refamiliarizing myself with the show, and and kind of working that way, going, oh, I forgot about this, and so yeah.
Oh, awesome! Very cool. And yeah, I'll definitely put you have sent me some links before that I really enjoyed. So I would love to share that with the listeners so that they can check it out as well. It's really cool stuff. And I love that you're creating new content to celebrate Dark Shadows and doing some really creative, fun stuff.
Jukebox play. We've got a new record and Carolyn's taking it for a spin today. Carolyn, go, 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 go. Carolyn, go, 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 go. With her long blonde hair flipped out to there, she's the face of the young people that all hang out here. Carolyn, go, 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 go. Carolyn, go, go.
And you too, Bobby, with your channel. It's just not only Dark Shadows, but just classic horror in general, and keeping that monster kid spirit alive. I love when I see younger fans too that are just like so enthusiastic about this stuff, because we need to keep it all going and having discussions about it and having fun with it too. What are your hopes for the future of Dark Shadows, Bobby?
Well, definitely get Night of Dark Shadows restored.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many. The characters are so great. The stories are so great. I think there is so much more Dark Shadows content to be explored. And I do live streams on TikTok too. And every live stream, somehow Dark Shadows gets brought up. Like it is. People are still watching. They still love it. So I think it just.
Awesome.
I think just like when you like a really really well done remake of some sort, either it's like a Netflix series or a movie. I really feel like that, like a Netflix series or something like that would be the way to go right now.
Yeah.
Because you would have more time than a movie, and you could really really explore the characters. So I feel like it's just man, just like one remake away from being brought back into the stratosphere, like bigger than ever, you know?
Yeah, I'd definitely prefer a series to a movie because then you'd get more of it and you get to explore and you could do the whole, all these storylines going on and for sure. I'd also like to see more Dark Shadows merchandise. Like I know I've seen on on Bobby on Lugosi Theater in the background. Sometimes you'll have like the bobblehead or something like that. And
Is this music
there we
box?
go. Other Joe's that's music box. There we go. Yay. Uh, awesome. That is a great collectible. I have one back here too.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, yeah. What collectibles would you both like to see, or would you like to see more Dark Shadows collectibles? And if so, what would you like to see?
Well, I love T-shirts.
Oh,
So that's a big thing, especially if you go on a lot of these websites like Teespring and Etsy stores and different things. That there's so many fan made T-shirts out there.
including Terror at Collinwood t-shirts.
Yes, I was.
What's that?
I said I was segueing into that.
Oh,
But I love that because it's such a great way to represent the fandom. Because you can just be walking around, going about your day, going to the grocery store, and there's going to be somebody going, "Is that Barnabas Collins? Is that Dark Shadows?" And their eyes light up, and it sparks a conversation. And so I love T-shirts. I think they're wonderful conversation pieces because it's not just memorabilia that's up on a shelf that maybe people see when they come over. It's something that you can take with you wherever you go, and you're representing the fandom, and you're enlightening people, because even if they don't know what Dark Shadows is and they go, "Hey, who's that guy on your shirt?" and that leads to a conversation and they go, "Wow, that sounds really cool, I got to check out this show."
great call with the t-shirts. One of my favorite experiences wearing a Dark Shadows t-shirt was at San Diego Comic-Con. There were a few years in a row that I went to Comic-Con. I don't go anywhere. I just don't have the stamina for San Diego Comic-Con. But I wore a Barnabas shirt to San Diego Comic-Con, and somebody saw me wearing it was the Basil Gogos painting from Famous Monsters of Filmland on the shirt. And somebody ran up to me and they said, "Thank you so much for wearing that shirt because Dark Shadows needs to be represented here." And I said, "I love Dark Shadows. I had to wear a Barnabas shirt at some point during the con." I would love to see more people wearing Dark Shadows shirts at cons. Once in a while at a horror convention, I do cons as Penny, and every once in a while I'll see somebody with a Dark Shadows shirt. And of course, I immediately command them to come to my table so that we can have a conversation about Dark Shadows. So, how about you, Bobby? Is there any kind of merchandise that you'd like to see released for Dark Shadows?
Oh yes, I mean definitely more shirts and everything like that. But also, I would like to see some Dr. Julia Hoffman.
Yes.
That's something that I feel is because there's some really great Barnabas stuff. There's some great Quinn stuff, but we need I think we need some Julia Hoffman especially because Grayson Hall, she had such a unique, striking face in her character. She's got the medallion. She's got all these parts. They could have like a Wingcliff background.
Yes.
So I would really like to see some Julia Hoffman merchandise.
Agree. Patty Karapinar, who is wonderful. I don't know if you guys ever saw the medallion she made. She sent me one, which was so nice of her. It is the coolest thing ever, and they should make an official one. Stare into the center of the light. So, isn't that cool?
Oh, that's so neat.
Yeah,
That's
they
so
should. They
cool.
should. They should make MPI should put one of these out and Patty did such a great job on this, and thank you again, Patty, for this.
Oh, it looks perfect.
It does, right? She did a great job. She posted online, like she's done different versions of it, and it's incredible. There's also this. This is not an officially licensed item, but Clay Guy. I have all 4 of his Dark Shadows. I don't know, but he made a Julia.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Dr. Julia Hoffman.
Perfect.
Yeah, she's great.
That's so groovy.
He did Julia, Barnabas, Quentin, and Angelique. So he did 4 Dark Shadows, and he does all kinds of like horror related little clay figurines. But he did those 4 Dark Shadows characters. Yeah, I'd love to see more Julia stuff. I'd love to see. I mean, a lot of this stuff, not Josette's Music Box, but the Clay Guy and The medallion is like kind of either third party stuff or unlicensed stuff or fan made stuff. It would be nice to see more like officially licensed stuff. We have the Paper Dolls book coming out from Hermes Press, and that's Samantha Lomusio illustrated. So that's a new item that's coming out. So that's pretty cool to see. And also from Hermes Press, very exciting, is Curse of Dark Shadows, the brand new graphic novel that's written by Craig Hurd McKinney, and that's going to be coming out. So stay tuned for updates about that. And if you want to hear more about the Curse of Dark Shadows graphic novel, check out episode 93 of the podcast. I was trying to, at one point I was working for Super 7, and I had also been working for Mattel doing freelance stuff for them. And I tried to convince Super 7 to get the license for Dark Shadows, because they do like little reaction figures that are like kind of like Star Wars or the Remco mini monsters from the 80s. They do them in that style. And I would love to see them do Dark Shadows, but then once they get a license for something, they do all kinds of stuff like drinking glasses and shirts and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, why? I don't know why they don't grow. I think it would take like a new Dark Shadows to get them interested in taking a chance on licensing Dark Shadows, because it seems like it would be right up their alley to try something like that. So hopefully they will at some point.
I got one. The Dark Shadows brandy snifter.
Oh my God. Yes. It's absolutely, that's essential. How has that not been made yet?
Now, one thing I would love to see is I remember reading an article where Catherine Lee Scott had talked about making some of her own clothes when she was on Dark Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Shirts and things. I think it would be amazing if she could partner with some company of doing Dark Shadows, either like costumes or Dark Shadows collection of clothing.
Oh, wow.
A lot of fans that do things like cosplay and things like that. We just have to kind of cobble stuff together or get things, specially made. But I mean, especially for like the modern day, the 1966 time period through 1971, those kind of contemporary looks. I mean, that stuff is so in, and I mean, she lived there. She made her own clothes, during that time. So I think she would be a great person to do something with that, and kind of pay homage to a lot of her classic looks that she did on the show.
Agree. Yeah. I mean, that's a cool idea. Like the Dark Shadows collection, and it's of outfits. And I mean, that would be really cool. And like you said, people like to do cosplay. And just to wear, like, honestly, like I some of that stuff, I would wear it. I mean, like,
I just bought a few dresses a few months ago that I sticky dresses, because they were, they had that look, and they were modern dresses, but they still have that very kind of classic 1960s look. And, a lot of those outfits on the show are still very wearable. I mean, not obviously, but some of those, I mean, I could just see people, wearing some of these things, just today, not, cosplaying or at a costume party, but just to wear, just street clothes.
Sure, absolutely. Some of those looks are just timeless too, especially I think in the 1966-67 period too, where there's just like these very classy outfits like that Elizabeth wears and stuff that just look like something out of a 30s or 40s Hollywood film. Those styles are timeless almost, and so classy and beautiful. But that's a great idea. That'd be really cool. Before we sign off, is there anything else that you both would like to mention? Lugosi Theater. How do we access Lugosi Theater, Bobby?
So I am on, just type in Lugosi Theater, either on YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok. And probably by the time this video airs, we'll have the new Barnabas and Maggie diner scene up.
Yes, I can't wait to see that.
Thank you so much.
And Catherine, what about you? How do we access your music? Is it all housed at a specific link?
So the Dark Shadows stuff is all under the name Discount Artificial Sweetener. I do have some non-Dark Shadows music under that name as well, so just look. I have music from the East Wing Volumes 1 and 2. I have the 1897 Volume 1 out currently. I have Blue Whale B-Sides out. And then I did a Dark Shadows Christmas record. There's two Christmas theme Dark Shadows songs available. I Want a Groovy Vampire for Christmas. And so those are what's out right now. I'm currently working on volume 3 of Music from the East Wing and volume 2 of 1897 album, which may possibly be a 3-album thing. I'm not sure. And I've got Dean Monahan, who is a brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing the cover for volume 2 for me. And he does wonderful Dark Shadows artwork. You can find him on Etsy and online. And so that's what I'm working on currently.
Very cool. Well, thank you both for joining me on the show this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure finally getting to have. I've been meaning to bring you both onto the show for a while. So it's been a real joy getting to talk to both of you. And I look forward to talking to both of you again in the future. Definitely would love to have you back sometime.
Thank you so much.
I'll send you the links for the music. I'll also send you links to some of the videos where I tell some of my true ghost stories.
Oh, yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Definitely interested in checking that out. Thank you again to both of you. And folks, if you enjoyed the podcast, please do like and subscribe if you're watching the YouTube version of this. If you're listening to the audio version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or one of the podcast apps, please rate the podcast. That does help the podcast to reach more listeners, especially on Apple Podcasts. If you scroll down to the bottom, somebody emailed me the other day and asked how to rate. Scroll down to the bottom on the app, on your phone, and then there are stars on the bottom. And if you want to type a review, you're welcome to do that as well. I would appreciate it. That does help the podcast to grow when people do searches and things like that. Same thing on YouTube. When you subscribe or like the video, the algorithms will push that podcast episode out so that more people who may be interested in it will be able to access it more easily and see it show up in their feeds. And with that said, thank you very much for listening, and until next time.
And for as long as they lived, the dark shadows never truly vanished, for there will always be terror at Collinwood. Terror at Collinwood is a Penny Dreadful production.